This video is for you if you want to work on your wrist, elbow, or shoulder. If you have pain in any of those, or if you want to increase coordination or strength, then I'm going to show you how to do that with this very simple tool. This is called a TheraBand FlexBar. These things retail at about 15 bucks on Amazon, and they last forever. This one is probably 15 years old now. There's lots of different types. There's thinner ones, which are easier to move. Then this is like a medium one, and then there's harder ones as well. All right, so if you have a wrist problem with wrist weakness or wrist pain, I suggest you start with some of these exercises, and then I will show you how to build up to your elbow and then finally to your shoulder. Okay, so the wrist moves like this. It goes inwards and outwards and then up and down like this. And we need to strengthen it in those ways. And so you can use this bar very simply like this. I'm going to place it down in front of me and hold on to one end. Then I'm going to turn my wrist over using all the muscles of the forearm here. Okay, so essentially I'm just doing this. And because of the table, I'm getting a really nice resistance here. So it's really hard to get this type of motion with weights. So that's why I like using something like this. Now that would strengthen this side of the forearm, but you can also strengthen the muscles on this side by simply turning it over and then going back the other way. So I'm getting a really good forearm wrist strengthening exercise. Now, if you've got tennis elbow, this will also help for pain up in your elbow as well. All right, so the last two movements are radial and ulnar deviation, or simply just waving the hand. So how do we do that? Well, rather than putting it to the side, you can put it out in front of you and then bend it forwards like this. So I'm doing that type of motion with my wrist, getting a really nice contraction, and then if I slow it back, getting eccentric contraction there as well. So concentric contraction, eccentric contraction as I come back. Both of those types of movements really help the muscles of the wrist. Okay, and the last movement is obviously the opposite of that. So we have to put our hand into a slightly different position. We can put it like this, or you can move yourself to make yourself a little bit more comfortable. But I like to put it behind me here, and you're simply just bending the hand like this, almost like you're hammering something, okay? That's it. And we'll get back to that hammering motion later on, because that is a very valid way to get some movements into the wrist as well. Once you've started strengthening your wrist, you should feel some changes quite quickly. But let's move up onto the elbow. And this is what the TheraBand is originally designed for, and this is what it's marketed for, helping people with tennis elbow. So one of the movements that the tendons in the elbow like is this eccentric contraction. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So if I was to pull my wrist up like this, you can see these muscles pop out here and the muscles get shorter. That's called a concentric. But if I'm still holding tension here and I allow this to go forward, they're lengthening under tension. That's called eccentric. So how do we do that? Well, what we can do here is we can actually hold the wrist up into an eccentric position. And then I could drive the other hand forward like this. So if this one was to win, the hand would spin forward on this side, okay? So I'm simply just driving it forward, and then very slowly, I allow the eccentric lengthening on this hand. Then I come back, bring it back under no resistance at all. And again, eccentrically pull it forward. So this is a great exercise for tennis elbow. And it's also going to strengthen up this arm as well, because this arm's doing a lot of work. So if I was to do this part of my rehab program, I will be looking to do quite a lot of repetitions, up to 20 repetitions of this. And the thing about tendons is they can be a little bit sore after you do some work on them. But if they are sore 48 hours later, you've done too much. If they are sore simply 12 hours later, or even sometimes 24 hours later, that's okay. They actually like that little bit of stimulus. But if you overdo it, it's 48 hours and that's too much. So let that be your guide. A little bit of soreness the next day is okay. Soreness 2 days later, not okay. We can also move this sort of hammer motion, and we can use that to get a slightly different but faster contraction in the elbow. So it's going to be contracting one way and the other way. Very simply, you hold this thing and you go inwards and outwards like this. Okay, that's going to be my wrist moving inwards and outwards like this. But because this has some momentum behind it, it's actually quite hard to do. And I'll feel this working in those elbow muscles very, very quickly. And if you get one of these, just try it on your left hand and compare that to your right hand as well. I always find there's a coordination difference between the two hands. And that's an interesting thing to deal with, especially when you're dealing with injuries on your non-dominant hand. All right, so we can go left and right like this, but we can also go forwards and backwards. Okay, so if I can waggle it forwards and backwards, almost like I've got a truncheon and I'm an old school British police officer. I'm waving my truncheon at people. Okay, that is doing all these muscles through here like this. But it brings me very, very nicely onto the shoulder and how to use this to rehab a shoulder. Whenever I help someone with a shoulder injury, I always like to take a whole body approach. And that's because the things like the pelvis and the shoulder girdle actually work together. And to demonstrate that very simply, if I was to step forward with one leg and have this hip extend slightly, it will actually help my ability to get my shoulder above my head. But if this hip didn't work as well as it could, let's say it's got some arthritis and it's stuck in a flex position like this, the ability to get my hand above my head is now decreased and the chances of hurting my shoulder are increased. So always look at the whole body when rehabbing a shoulder. But how do we use the TheraBar to get the rehab we want? Well, the movements of the shoulder are very simple. They go forwards and backwards, okay? So it's just simply forwards and backwards. It goes left and right like this, and then we can rotate outwards and rotate inwards, okay? Simple, but when we combine them together, it can get quite complex. Well, what I like about this is we showed you those two movements earlier, the forwards and backwards and the left and right, okay? So we can combine those movements, these 6 movements forwards and backwards like this, with these 2 different variations. And that's going to get the muscles in the shoulder to contract very, very quickly. Because as it goes this way, my shoulder has to slow down that movement to bring it back this way. And that co-contraction, we call it, or almost simultaneous contraction of the muscles in the rotator cuff can help improve strength and coordination, which can take care of a lot of shoulder injuries, things like impingement, things like sort of pain down the side here when you lift it up to the side, or bicep problems at the front when you lift it up to the front here. So what I want you to do is find a movement that you can do relatively pain-free. It might just be down here, something like this. Then you're going to take your TheraBar and you're going to move it forwards and backwards. So everything's moving now forwards and backwards. The bar's moving forwards and backwards, and the arm is moving forwards and backwards. Let's get your hips moving as well so that we can start getting a really nice full body approach. Lifting up your back as you go up towards the front here so that your shoulder doesn't have to do as much. Okay, over time, hopefully you can increase how much you're moving and you can get your hands way up above your heads. As you go backwards, you can increase how far backwards you go by simply bending the hip. Okay, so bending the hip, maybe even bending it back a little bit. A little hamstring stretch through this one as well if you want. All right, so that's moving this thing forwards and backwards. But when we move it side to side, it adds a whole new stimulus to the shoulder. And you might find that when you first do this, your shoulder gets tired very quickly. So let's have a look what that looks like. We're going left and right, arm goes up and down. Now try not to hit yourself with it, but you're going up and down. And the coordination this takes is actually immense, and the strength gains you get in your shoulder is huge as well. All right, cool. So that's forwards and backwards. But what about the other 2 movements? We've got this up and down type movement like this. So we're simply going to do the same thing. We're going to get this thing moving, take it up as far as is pain-free. Sometimes it helps to turn this thing upwards. There's a little bone inside your shoulder here that can get caught as it comes up. And if you turn the shoulder outwards, and we call it external rotation, it moves that bone out of the way and allows it to travel up a bit more freely. So it's always useful to do that. Good. And you'll notice that I'm also moving my hips. All right, that starts acknowledging this connection between the hips and the shoulders. Going up and over. So that's moving the bar forwards and backwards. Now I'm going to move it left and right like this. So left and right. And again, this is the harder one. This is the one that really can tax the shoulder. My shoulder's getting fatigued just with these few repetitions. Okay, lastly, we want to think about rotation, internal, external rotation, okay? We can do rotation at sort of parallel to the ground, or we can do it down here. It doesn't matter so much. It's whatever's working for your shoulder in your situation. All right, so there's 2 movements going forwards and backwards. So I'm simply going to rotate, but notice I'm trying to rotate through my feet, through my hips. I'm really getting this hip to internally rotate here. This one's externally rotating. And I'm using my whole body for rotation. I'm not simply just doing a rotator cuff exercise like this. This is a whole body rotator cuff exercise. Okay, so that's forwards and backwards with the bar. Next, left and right with the bar. That's good. Moving it inwards and outwards like this. Really working through the full range of motion that's available in your shoulder joint. So to summarize, those are 3 exercises for wrist, elbow, and shoulder, and that shoulder one was a whole body exercise using what we call the TheraBand. I put a little link in the description below on where you can pick one of these up via Amazon. And if you like this approach, you like this full body approach to injury, then I invite you to check out my video that I've got about scoliosis and back pain. It's a whole different way of looking at people who have scoliosis and a different way of managing scoliosis. So if that's interesting to you, then just click this video up here or click the link in the description below.